Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Riker, we're taking a look. This isn't really a prediction video or a season prediction video because the season's already started, but I guess it is. Because we're looking at where the Raptors could possibly finish this year. As of recording, we've only seen one game, so if this comes out after the Celtics game, the roster morale might be, or the fan morale might be up or down, but this Raptors team, win or loss, it's going to be very exciting to see what this team does this year. And I think there's been a lot of, some people are saying we're not going to make the playoffs. Some people are talking about us getting first seed. And, you know, I'm closer to that first seed. I think the first seed is definitely possible for this Toronto Raptors team this year.
Yeah, definitely. The morale right now on the Toronto Raptors is at an all-time low, I think. People are still shell-shocked by the events of the offseason. And I'm a big Globe and Mail guy. No relationship to the Globe and Mail whatsoever, but I'm just saying that I'm a big Globe and Mail guy. I read their articles. They usually do good sports pieces related to the Toronto Raptors, but they are so...
Shout out to Globe and Mail.
Not shout out to Globe and Mail. They have become so cynical. It was it was a 15-minute read about how displeased they were with the ring ceremony for the Toronto Raptors, and I'll tell you, over 50% of the comment section agreed with the article, supporting that it was over the top. And that, anyways, people, the priorities are different. They're misaligned. People are way too on the other side of the fence here. The East, let's face it, the East has gotten worse, right? There is a big opportunity now for the Raptors to actually finish maybe better than they did last season. There's a few heavy hitters still left in the league, but you're going to make the argument that the Bucks and the 76ers both got worse. I'm going to contest you or give you a little bit of pushback on that one. And the simple fact of the matter is this is a more special season now because we don't have a number one superstar guy. Siakam might develop into that this season, right? We just maxed them out, but we don't actually, it has to be a team collaboration to get us where we want to go. And I think that all of these factors combined, it's possible that they get to the first seed. It's possible that they do extraordinary things. So it's an interesting conversation to have, Ben, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, certainly. So we're prefacing this is the first seed. We're not talking about the playoffs right now. We're thinking about the regular season, what this team can do. And, you know, we're looking at the rest of the East, and we're going to talk about some of the lower tier teams that we've been compared to first, you know, before we get into the Sixers and the Bucks. And I think we'll both be in agreement on this. Some people have put the Brooklyn Nets ahead of us. Riker?
Yeah, not a chance. Not a chance. I mean, KD is unlikely to return this season, and we just saw them lose to the Timberwolves, albeit one game, but we just saw them lose to the Timberwolves. Of all teams, they're not a better team than the Toronto Raptors. No chance.
Yeah, like Kyrie's fine. That's fair enough. The Boston Celtics. This one might be a bit more controversial than the Nets, but you know we were significantly better than the Boston Celtics last year. And yes, we lost Kawhi and Danny, but we have guys stepping up, and they're a team that's gotten significantly worse. They just lost Kyrie Irving. They just lost Al Horford, who is a huge piece for them. You know, Kemba Walker's good. He's an all-star. Like, I'm not trying to undermine their pickup of Kemba Walker, but they just gave Jaylen Brown a max. Gordon Hayward still hasn't really shown a lot. They have no bigs, right? Do you think that the Boston Celtics are a team that's going to be ahead of the Toronto Raptors?
No, well, this is a good point to chime into. I'll be surprised if they lose tomorrow's game.
Yep.
But really, ultimately, well, this is how I'll say it. Yeah, the Boston Celtics definitely significantly worse than last season, but they're in the similar situation now to the Toronto Raptors, where they need to rely on the unity of their team. The bench for the Toronto Raptors is 10 times better. The depth on the Toronto Raptors team 10 times better than the Boston Celtics. I'll be shocked beyond belief if they finish in a lower tier, lower seed than the Boston Celtics do when it's all said and done. However, the benefit of the doubt that I'll give to the Boston Celtics is because they're in a similar situation to the Toronto Raptors, they are better equipped for the regular season because they're going to go out and play a consistent style of basketball, whereas the teams we're going to mention now, coming up, the 76ers, the Bucks, etc., guys that are relying on one guy, their season is dependent usually on that one guy as well.
Yeah, and that usually works better in the playoffs, but in the regular season it's a bit more iffy. Yeah. So yeah, and we'll list out a couple of other ones. Did the Pistons shock you? The Hawks? Some people are really high on these random teams. If Oladipo comes back, the Pacers, or are we just going to write them off for now?
We can rattle through it. The Bulls suck. The Cleveland Cavaliers are probably the worst team in the NBA. Detroit is still bad. Indiana's bad. Washington's bad. Magic are bad. The only team that I would say actually improved this season, Miami Heat. But I don't think that they're going to be better than the Toronto Raptors. And anybody in the comment section...
The Heat are a team I forgot about.
Sorry?
Yeah, the Heat are a team I forgot about.
Yeah, I think that they improved. And people can sound off in the comment section about who they think has improved, but I don't think there's any argument or any conversation to be had about any of these teams besides the next two, the 76ers and the Bucks, to actually be in contention for their first seed. It's a 3-team series, or it's a 3-team competition now, Ben. So pick whoever you want.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. What do you think? What's your breakdown of these two teams?
So we're looking at the regular season here, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid rarely plays a full regular season. Ben Simmons, I think he's going to be improved this year, but he's really not a guy that is going to get you a bunch of wins throughout the year. They just lost Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick, who arguably in the playoffs last year and throughout the regular season were the Sixers' top 2 players on any given night. They are huge losses for that team. I think specifically JJ Redick, who we saw on opening night really played well against the Toronto Raptors. Those are 2 huge losses for them. Their bench, the regular season is all about having a bench. We saw it 2 years ago when we were the first seed, when we had a bench mob going, which is in the same vein that we do this year. Even though we're running a tighter rotation, but the pieces coming off the bench are having that impact. The Sixers don't have any of that. James Ennis is all right. They're Mike Scott. He's got some cool tattoos, but he's not going to be a huge impact player specifically in the regular season. And Joel Embiid, Al Horford, those are guys that are going to be effective in the playoffs. Al Horford's older. He's not going to give you a lot of regular season wins to this roster, particularly with another big player down there, because Horford is better suited for the center position in today's league. Tobias Harris is not a huge piece. I'm not saying the Sixers are going to be horrible or anything. I think the Sixers, in my prediction, are going to be 3rd this year. But, I think the Toronto Raptors, the way we're constructed, and this isn't really a debate for the playoffs, but in a night-in, night-out basis, I think we're going to put a better product on the floor than the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it comes down to the depth argument. I could see 3rd seed. 51-win team last season were the 76ers. I could see them being on par for that as well. And we'll get you could get into debate later on in the season that Jimmy Butler was their playoff guy, that their depth really became an issue in the playoffs when they had that Boban, James Ennis, that lineup out that was very unproductive. There's a lot of issues for the 76ers team, but you're right. Looking at the regular season, they just don't have as much to offer night in and night out. I think when they win, they'll win big because of the heavy hitters on their team, because of the Al Horfords and the Embiids and the Ben Simmons. I think if Ben Simmons takes a step forward again in his development and maybe works on his jump shot a little bit, I still am not very high on him to say that he's going to be leaps and bounds ahead in the way that we saw Siakam take leaps and bounds in one season. I think he's more of a slow, progressive development guy. I could be proven completely wrong, but the way that I see the 76ers season playing out is exactly what you said. Third seed and probably in the 50 to high 50s range wins. I don't see them getting a 60 at all.
Yeah, I think they're a team that's focused on the playoffs this year. Joel Embiid's not going to overexert himself in terms of getting a first seed to be, he wants to be healthy in the playoffs and really show his work there. So the Raptors superstars are looking to prove themselves throughout the regular season. Siakam just got a max and he wants to show he's worth it. Fred VanVleet's playing for a contract. We have a lot of young guys. OG, Serge is trying to, show that he's still a center that can get a contract in this league. Even Gasol's coming off that Spain win. The Raptors are a very hungry, young, superstar, star-riddled team that are trying to prove themselves. So I think we have a lot more to gain from a successful regular season than the Sixers. But the one that's going to be in most contention, and probably already in the comments of this video, because people don't usually watch this far, but the Milwaukee Bucks are a team that people are going to say are the runaway first seed. And they were first seed last year, and they had a really strong regular season. But in the same vein,
60 wins.
They're a team.
We were only 2 wins back, just to be clear.
Yeah. But they were a team that wanted that first seed last year. They wanted to prove to the league that they were in contention. They could compete with the big dogs out east, and they could. They showed that they were 2 games away from the NBA Finals, and there wasn't a lot of expectations for the Milwaukee Bucks coming into the season last year, right? People didn't really expect them to be a top-tier team. They thought they'd be 4th or 5th, and they had a lot of people to prove wrong. And that's similar to what the people are saying about Toronto Raptors this year. 4th, 5th seed. No one expects them to be the top team. They have a star. Giannis, people didn't know if he could take the leap and really carry a team to a lot of wins. And I think that's what Fred VanVleet and Siakam are going through now. Right? Giannis, he wants to have success in the playoffs, especially after what happened with Kawhi and them. And I'm sure he's he's going to be looking to get a first seed. I'm not saying I think there's a more likely chance they're going to push harder than in the regular season than the Sixers. But, Giannis, he's their main guy. Everything runs through Giannis. They have a lot of other players that are there to complement Giannis. But one major loss for them, who was a huge piece during the regular season, I know he dealt with some injuries, but Malcolm Brogdon was a 40, 50, 90 guy. And, they replaced him with Wesley Matthews. That's a tough loss right there, in my opinion. Losing Malcolm Brogdon to a guy that's very inconsistent. He got cut from the Knicks. He was an okay player for the Pacers, right? I don't see the Bucks really improving from last year. I see a bit of regression. They have Eric Bledsoe. They're all in on Eric Bledsoe, and he's kind of regressed as his careers went along. I think the Toronto Raptors they're hungrier than the Bucks in the regular season. I'm not arguing this for the playoffs. I think Siakam and Fred have a lot to prove this year. I think they have more to prove than the Milwaukee Bucks right now, and even if the talent isn't equal, I think we're going to go for more of those regular season wins.
I don't agree with you all on this. We're probably aligned for most of this, almost every commentary on every other team except for the Bucks. Tonight, we're recording this on the night that the Bucks played against the Houston Rockets. Mm-hmm. You might respond and say, Ryker, but the Lakers are the best team in the West, or the Clippers, or the Warriors. But in my books, the Houston Rockets are up there with the best of them, just in terms of their play style. They play fast. They're able to play small ball. They have enough height that they can match up against a big team with Clint Capella, and PJ Tucker plays always up 2 weight classes, it seems. They make it really tough on opposing defenses with the amount of 3-pointers that they put up and all the switches that they run. So it's a challenging team to beat, and they're a good regular season team as well. The Bucks, they just beat them. All credit due to them, because the simple fact is that Giannis, he's too hard to handle. He's too big, he's throwing guys off of him, and he has perfect complementary pieces. I understand you're high on Malcolm Brogdon, but you have the emergence of Sterling Brown, Connaughton this season. You still have what's his name? We mentioned him earlier in this podcast, their point guard, Eric Bledsoe. They have a complementary team around arguably the most unstoppable offensive player, let alone one of the better defenders because of his length and size in the entire league, and that's Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think the way that the Raptors could get a better seeding than the Bucks is if they like you said, play hungry game in and game out, but I don't think that it's because they're actually a better team than the Bucks. I think the Bucks are, on paper, in reality, in every way perhaps possible, the Bucks are the better team. Now, the reason that the Raptors can beat them in a playoff series, and that's a different conversation, is just because of the way that we're able to readjust our matchups, to play different things. It just seems like the Raptors ultimately are a smarter team. But at the end of the day, I think the Bucks, they're a really big challenger, and I think that they could easily get number 1, but I think that the Raptors, they have the pieces that they could get it as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Raptors are for sure going to get it over the Bucks, but it's probably a homer pick. I'm a Toronto Raptors supporter, number 1, and I'm saying I'm going out on a limb, and I want you to make your prediction too, Ryker. But I think the Toronto Raptors can get ahead of the Sixers, get ahead of the Bucks, and in the regular season claim that first seed out east.
How many wins?
How many wins? Yeah. I'm saying 58.
So same amount as last year, but then that's enough to finish as the number 1 seed.
Yeah. 58 wins. Bucks are going to get 50.
So the West is taking 56. All the wins this year, is what you're saying.
The West is getting some W's this year. That's what I'm saying. I think there's a few more middle of the pack teams. We'll see what happens. That's just my off the top prediction. Where do you expect the Raptors to be at the end of the year, Ryker?
First or second. That's my opinion.
First or second? Okay. So you're thinking you're ahead of Philly. You're thinking ahead of Philly.
Oh, I was always ahead of Philly.
Okay.
But my headspace is between 55 and 60 games. Okay. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I think we're on the same wavelength there. I'm sure there's going to be people in the comment section that are disagreeing with us and yelling at us the whole podcast. But, we're high on this Toronto Raptors team. We think Siakam and Fred are really going to step up. And we have the talent and we have the hunger to really be a successful regular season team.
Yeah. But the one final piece that I want to bring up, Ben, is could you not see it going the other way too? Because really we're saying that our success is dependent on Siakam and Fred VanVleet. But could they not have a spectacular season, and then we're really You know what I'm trying to say here? Like, could it not go foreseeably the other direction where the Raptors only get 45 wins because Siakam is not able to be consistent and get 20 points per game?
It's certainly a possibility. I don't think it's probable in what we've seen Siakam improve. Every year he's been in the league, he's getting handed the reins. You know, he looks unstoppable. He looks so smooth the way he's dribbling the basketball right now. And those Rico Hines runs the preseason. And, you know, in that first game we inevitably watched, you know, Fred VanVleet, he's looking a lot nicer. I'm not saying, I think Fred's going to be more inconsistent than Siakam throughout the year if I had to make a prediction. But, you know, I expect those two guys to really be scoring leaders. I think OG is going to surprise a lot of people. I don't think Gasol will be as bad as he was in that first game. Lowry's going to show up. Serge Ibaka's going to show up. Norman Powell's going to show up in stretches. You know, and we have some hungry guys off the bench too, like Terrence Davis. I think Matt Thomas will come in at some point and show his stuff. We have Rondé and Stanley, who've been called out by Nick Nurse early on. I think they're going to try and maybe sneak in there. McCaw's a guy that everyone's forgetting about. You know, we have a lot of players that can play this game in the regular season, be effective, and I just don't see everyone sucking. Like, I expect most of those players to go right, and if it doesn't happen for everyone, you know, Siakam doesn't take the leap, I'd be surprised. I think it's improbable that Siakam and Fred don't take the leap the Raptors need to be a successful team, that, you know, all these things happen and Kyle Lowry falls off. I think as long as most of the things we expect happen, the Raptors will be good. The Raptors will fulfill our predictions. And maybe people disagree, but, you know, that's my take.
Well, there you have it. We hope for a relentless regular season performance by the Toronto Raptors, but you can bet on relentless optimism from our man Ben Rogers here on the Toronto Raptors. And it all sounds good to me. It all sounds good, and I hope it plays out that way.
Certainly. But let's know what you guys think. Obviously, this is probably a hotter take. No one's really predicting the Raptors to be first seed, but, you know, we think it's possible. We think it's probable, but let us know in the comment section below. You're the best for making it this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. Riker, any last words?
That's it, Ben. Cheers.